Hey everybody. Okay, so now we're going to multiply and divide the rational expressions. A quick review of how we multiply fractions, okay? So we multiply straight across. We don't need to have a common denominator to multiply fractions, all right? So you just multiply everything straight across. Now remember, we're dealing with rational expressions here. And so that means that we're going to be dealing with expressions that have variables in them. So the numerator will have a variable, the denominator could have the same variable or a different variable, and we could be able to reduce before we multiply. And that's kind of the key to making this a simpler process, is to reduce before you multiply. Okay, so where I copied this picture from is in the textbook, but I want to show you that this thing right here is a period. So they're saying this is a sentence, multiply 10/28 times 8/15, period. That's a period. This right here is multiplication, okay? It's a dot for multiplication. And I just want to remind you of how we're allowed to multiply. I need to write. Okay, so 10/28 times 8/15. I always reduce before I multiply, only because it makes my life just a little bit easier. And I know that because these are both even numbers, that at least 2 will go into both of those. So I'm going to divide top and bottom by a factor of 2. So I would get 5 in the numerator and I would get 14 in the denominator, okay? And remember, just a reminder, you're allowed to reduce vertically or diagonally, but never left and right. Never left and right, okay? So vertically, up and down, or diagonally, but never left and right, okay? So if you see this, now we've got an even number and an even number over here, so they can both be reduced by a factor of 2. So again, going to divide both by 2. So 14 divided by 2 is 7, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. And I don't think, oh, no, there is. There's one more thing that we can reduce here. Look at the 5 and the 15. So they both could be reduced by a factor of 5. So we're going to divide both of those by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Now, what's left over I can multiply straight across, okay? So I've got 1 times 4, which is 4. And then I've got 7 times 3, which is 21. And guess what? If you reduce fully before you multiply, then you shouldn't have to reduce at the end. All right? So just reminding you how to multiply fractions, because now we're going to do that with some rational things. All right, now we did something similar to this in the last module. And so again, we're allowed to reduce vertically, which there's nothing we can reduce between 2x and 3y squared. There is something we can reduce between this x and this x and this y and this y. Okay, so I'm going to reduce this. That goes away and that turns into a 1. That goes away and I'm going to reduce this to a 2. Remember, we subtract our exponents. So I've got 2x over 3y squared times, let's see here, what do we have now? We've got 6y squared over x. Okay, all right, so now what else can we reduce? We can reduce the x's here and here, so I'm going to do that. The x and the x, those cancel. The y squareds cancel. And look, the 3 and the 6, 3 goes in there once, 3 goes in there twice. All right, and I think that's all we can do. Remember, you're not allowed to reduce left and right. So only thing we can do now is multiply 2 times 2. And we get 4. Okay, so now before we get to the rational stuff with the pluses and the minuses, first thing I want to do is show you how to do this, okay? So first thing we want to do is we want to factor each numerator and denominator completely. Then it says multiply the numerators and the denominators and simplify by dividing out common factors. These two steps right here can be interchanged, all right? If you would rather simplify by dividing out the common factors first and then multiplying, you're totally welcome to do that. Otherwise, you're allowed to do that at the end too. It's just like simplifying a fraction. Okay, so for this problem, I found a mistake in the problem. For one thing, this right here does not factor. Okay, so I'm going to change this problem. So if you're following along in the textbook, just understand that this example is written incorrectly. Okay, so we're going to change this to be x squared minus 7x plus 12. Okay, so now that will factor. All right, so let's factor every piece that can be factored. So we've got 2x in the numerator. That can't be factored. All right, this denominator right here, it's got to multiply to be positive 12, but add up to be negative 7. And so that would be x minus 3 and x minus 4. All right, so those multiply to be positive 12, but they add up to be negative 7. All right, so now we're multiplying, and so what comes in the numerator, that is a difference of squares on the right-hand side, so it's going to factor to be a conjugate pair. And then this denominator doesn't factor, okay? So again, I tend to reduce before I multiply. So I can get rid of this x right here, and it'll get rid of one of those x's there. And I can reduce the 2 and the 6. And then I can also reduce this minus 3 and this minus 3 right here, all right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply straight across with what's left over, all right? So this whole thing turned into 1. So what I'm left with in the numerator, 1 times x plus 3 gives us x plus 3 in the numerator. And then our denominator, all that's left over here, because that went away, that turned into 3. This is still an x, so I've got 3x times x minus 4. And that's it. That's all we can do for this. Remember, this x right here is married to this 3, okay? So we cannot reduce this 3 with this 3. It's not possible because of the plus sign. We can't reduce the x's because of the plus sign as well, okay? You're only allowed to reduce factors that are multiplying, all right? So this is our final answer. Okay, let's take a look at this problem. All right, so we're going to start with factoring each piece that can be factored. This can be factored, and this can be factored. All right, so let's do that. So the numerator factors to be n times n minus 7. So all we did was factor out the GCF. All right, the denominator factors to be n plus 1 times n plus 1. All right, so now we're multiplying by n plus 1 over 2n. Now we can we can mark out like factors, all right? So we can mark out one of those and one of those. And we can mark out this n and that n, okay? And that looks like all of the similar factors that they have. So our numerator, when we multiply straight across, is n minus 7 over 2. We usually put our constant term in the front, and then we have n plus 1. And remember, can't simplify that because this n is married to this 7, all right? This n is married to this 1, all right? So that's it. This is as good as this answer gets. Okay, so on this one, I would probably start out by reversing the order of this, okay? So this would be negative 4x plus 16, and then I'm going to factor out the negative 4, okay? So negative 4, and then I'm left with x minus 4, and then the denominator would be, I'm going to factor out the 2 times x minus 6, and then the numerator on the expression on the right would be, let's see here, minus 6x plus 1. And then the denominator, it's a difference of squares, so it'll be x minus 4, x plus 4. Okay, and so then we can start getting rid of the like factors. Remember, diagonally or up and down, which is vertically, but not left and right. Okay, so we can get rid of this with this. We can get rid of this one and this one. We can simplify this 2 and this -4, so that's a -2 up there. And I think that's all we can do. All right, so now we're going to multiply straight across. We get -2 times x plus 1 over x plus 4. And do you have to have parentheses around this down here? No, not the denominator because there's no number out front, but you do have to have parentheses around this x plus 1 in the numerator. You do. Okay? So make sure that you don't get lazy there and ignore your parentheses. All right, let's do the same thing for this one. Let's factor what we can. So on the upper left, I'm going to factor out a 2. So I'm going to have 2 and then parentheses x minus 3. The denominator, let's see here, I will have x minus 3 and x minus 5. And then the numerator on the right, it's a difference of squares, so it'll be x minus 5 and x plus 5. And then the denominator, I'm just going to factor out a 2. Okay, so now let's mark out the factors that are alike. This and this can go away. This and this can go away. And this can go away. Oh, look, and this and this. Oh, so everything is gone. What does it mean when everything's gone? It doesn't mean 0. It means 1, right? That means that everything divided out and it created an answer of 1. I don't know about you guys, but I get a little offended by this, by doing all this work just to get an answer of 1. So anyways, it's my pet peeve, but nonetheless, it does happen. So anyway, that's just kind of my funny story. All right, so now I'm going to remind you how to divide rational expressions. Just a quick reminder, what we do here, you keep the first one. See, from there to there, it didn't change. You change your sign to multiplication. It did change from division to multiplication. And you flip-flop your second one. So you multiply by the reciprocal. And we're not going to change that rule. That rule still applies for this. Just a reminder on this page of how to divide rational expressions so you can read through this. Again, you're allowed to interchange these two. If you want to multiply first and then simplify, you're welcome to do that. Or if you want to simplify, then multiply. I tend to interchange these. I'll go 1, 2, 4, 3 is what I'll do. All right, so let's take a look at this one. So we're going to factor everything that can be factored. So I strongly recommend that before you flip, factor first, okay? So I'll write this as x minus 9, x plus 9, and then that's the, this over here, I'll write this as negative x plus 6, which would be negative 1 times x minus 6, okay? And that might help a little bit. Okay, so now let's keep the first one. So I've got x plus 9 over negative 1 times x minus 6. I'm going to change my sign to multiplication, and I'm flipping my second one. All right, so now let's mark out the like factors either diagonally or vertically. And what am I left with? I am left with, in the numerator, I am left with a 1, because you can't just leave it blank. And in the denominator, I have a negative 1 times x minus 9. A much more simplified way to write this would be just a negative sign out front, like that. Okay, so same thing with this one. I would factor everything and then flip, but you don't have to do it the way I do it. If you want to flip first and then factor, you're totally welcome to do that. So this one on the bottom left, I would factor that to be, let's see here, n times n minus 4. In the upper right, I would factor out my 9n, and then I would have n minus 5 here. Bottom right, denominator right, I would have n minus 5 and n minus 2. All right, now I'm going to keep, change, flip. So I've got 3n squared over n times n minus 4. Change my sign to multiplication. Now I'm flipping n minus 5, n minus 2 over 9n times n minus 5. Now, let's mark things out. This is the fun part. All right, that goes away. Let's see here. These two n's, get rid of those two n's, and then this 3, and this 9 becomes a 3. Okay? All right, now let's multiply straight across. So my numerator becomes n minus 2. My denominator becomes 3 and n minus 4. And that's as good as this thing gets. We can't do anything else to it. All right, let's factor again. So let's see here. 2 times 12. See, I'm going to have to work at this one. 24, I want factors of 24 that add up to be 5. Oh, no, sorry, that's a negative 24 that add up to be a positive 5. So it looks like that will be 8 and negative 3. Those guys multiply to be negative 24, but they add up to be positive 5. Okay, so this is going to take a little bit for me to factor, because this one requires that I actually split this apart. So let's see here. I've got 2x squared plus 8x minus 3x minus 12. I'm going to factor by grouping now. So I've got 2x, and then I've got x plus 4. I'm going to factor out a minus 3, and then I've got x plus 4. So this factors to be x plus 4 and 2x minus 3. Okay, that's that one. So x plus 4 and 2x minus 3 goes right there. All right, the denominator is x minus 4 and x plus 4. This numerator over here, so on the right side, I'm going to do 2 times 15 is 30. I want factors of positive 30 that add up to be negative 13, and that's negative 3 and negative 10. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. So 2x squared minus 13x plus 15, and I'm rewriting the middle term using these guys. I'm going to factor by grouping. All right, so now I've got that factored. So that's 2x minus 3, and that's x minus 5. And so then the denominator factors to be, let's see here, x minus 4 and x minus 4. Okay, now I am about to erase all of this right here because I need some space. So if you're still writing, hit pause, but this is about to be gone, okay? So you could always rewind. Oops. Okay, hang on. All right, now I've got a clean slate. All right, so now I'm going to keep my first one. I'm going to change my sign to multiplication, and now I'm flipping my second one. Now let's mark out the fun stuff. All right, let's get rid of x minus 4 and x minus 4. Let's get rid of the 2x minus 3 and the 2x minus 3. I can get rid of this x plus 4 with this x plus 4. And look at what I'm left with. I am left with x minus 4 over x minus 5. And that's it. Okay, so let's take a look at this one now. All right, so let's factor. So this would be a minus b, a plus b. And then don't forget, this baby right here is over 1, right? So this would factor to be a plus b and a plus b, okay? And so now we're going to keep the first one. We're going to change the sign, and we're going to flip this one, Okay, so keeping the first one, we've got a minus b, a plus b over 3ab times 1 over a plus b and a plus b. Now let's mark out our like factors. And that's it. That's all we can mark out. So let's multiply straight across. So we're left with a minus b in the numerator. We're left with 3ab times a plus b in the denominator. Okay, don't freak out just because this one's written as a fraction divided by another fraction. It's the same thing as this. So I would write this not in the fractional form like that. I wouldn't write it. This is called a complex fraction, by the way. So you've got 6x squared minus 7x plus 2 over 4x minus 8 divided by 2x squared minus 7x plus 3 divided by x squared minus 5x plus 6. Now, let's factor everything that we can. Okay, so I'm going to factor this thing first. So I would multiply 6 times 2, and I get 12. I want factors of 12 that add up to be negative 7, and that's negative 3 and negative 4. So I would write this as 6x squared minus 3x minus 4x plus 2. I'm going to factor by grouping now. So 3x times 2x minus 1. I'm going to factor out a negative 2 here. So then I've got 2x and minus 1 there. So I've got 2x minus 1 and 3x minus 2 is what this factors to be. I'm going to go ahead and write it down here. 2x minus 1 and 3x minus 2. All right, the denominator can factor to be 4 times x minus 2. All right, now I'm going to change my sign to multiplication. Now I'm flipping, okay? So this factors to be, let's see here, x minus 2 and x minus 3. Yep. All right, this numerator right here, I'm going to write off to the side. All right, so 2 times 3 is 6. I want factors of positive 6 that add up to be negative 7, and that is negative 1 and negative 6. So I'm rewriting my middle term, and I'm going to factor by grouping. So I've got x, and then I've got 2x minus 1, and then I've got minus 3, and I've got 2x minus 1. So 2x minus 1 and x minus 3 is what that factors to be. So it goes down here, because we flipped it. Okay, so now let's mark out the things that are alike. I think that's it. So now what are we left with? We're left with 3x minus 2 in the numerator and 4 in the denominator. That's it. That's all we can do here. Okay, holy moly, let's look at this hot mess. All right, so here's what I would do. Now, look at what you have going on here. You've got multiplication and you've got division. You will do these in order from left to right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply these two things right here. I'm ignoring this altogether, okay? So I'm going to multiply these guys together. I'm going to write down their factored form, though. So I've got 3 and then x minus 2 there. I've got 4 and x minus 1 there. This factors to be, let's see here, x plus 3 and x minus 1. And this factors to be x minus 5 and x plus, plus 2. Okay. And you know what? There's only one thing that can be marked out here, and that's that and that. Yep, that's all I see. All right, so now we have 3 and x minus 2 and x plus 3 in the numerator. We have 4 and x minus 5 and x plus 2 in the denominator, divided by, keep in mind, I know it says divided, and I changed it to a multiplication there. Keep, change, flip. We're flipping this one. I'm going to go ahead and factor that. X plus 6. There we go. Okay, so now we're flipping. Now, let's mark things out. That was my dog. She's grumbling under the table. All right, let's see here. X plus 2, that can go away. The 4 and the 8. Now these 2's can. What else? I don't think anything else. I think we're done. All right, so what are we left with? In the numerator, we're left with a 3. We're left with an x minus 2. We're left with an x plus 3. In the denominator, we are left with x minus 5 and x plus 6. And I believe that's it. I think that's all we can do. All right, that's it for this video. So let me know if you have any questions. Don't hesitate to reach out. Have a wonderful day.